Peace, 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 peace. What is good, YouTube family? Thank you for joining me again on my YouTube channel. I appreciate you. I hope you're doing well. I hope life is treating you fair. Today, we are going to be discussing the natal chart of Kevin Samuels. So for anyone who isn't aware or isn't familiar with Kevin Samuel, he is a YouTube influencer who recently transcended on March 5th of 2022, and he was someone who sparked a lot of conversation. He focused a lot on controversial topics and really made the collective talk. You know, he really made people talk, and this could be for better or worse. You know, a lot of people disliked what he was talking about. A lot of people liked what he was talking about. He was just kind of one of those people who, you know, he what you saw is what you got type of energy, and he was kind of unapologetic in the way he delivered a lot of his messages to the collective. You know, is what I noticed. I didn't really get to really dive deep into a lot of his talks and his videos while he was alive, but when he passed, I did see a lot of them come across my timeline, and it was very interesting to watch and just really see how he articulated a lot of things that he talked about and the way he expressed it in just his unapologetic nature, you know, and also the way he triggered so many people. That was something that really caught my attention, because he would really attract a lot of people to them, and he would trigger them, you know. So it was almost as if he was really good at triggering people, for better or worse, again, you know, whichever way you want to look at it. But without further ado, let's jump into this natal chart read and go deep into basically what was going on energetically around Kevin Samuels on the day of his transcendence. I do want to discuss a little bit of his natal chart first, so that we can kind of get an overall identity or energetic blueprint or makeup of what type of energy he kind of had. You know, I didn't know him personally. Like I said, I didn't really look too much at his videos, so I am going to be really biased with a lot of this information and just kind of shine the light on what I see, and just kind of putting the information out there for everybody else to kind of, you know, interpret and talk about, and hopefully, you know, cause more conversation and, you know, bring more uplifting awareness, though, all in all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into what we have on the screen. So I'm going to talk about his natal chart first, and then I'm going to dive a little bit into the synastry of his chart with the United States of America, because I think it just gives an overall understanding of not only his energy, but also the collective's energy. And then we're going to dive into the Transcendence chart, which is basically his natal chart with the transits that were happening on the day of his death, is what the Transcendence chart is. So let's go ahead and get in here. So there's a lot of stuff we have going on the screen. We won't be going in depth into everything. I'm just going to point out some key points and some key information to keep in mind, so that we can really get an overall good understanding of what it is we have going on with Kevin Samuels. I want to start out first with his sun, okay? And as we see here, his sun is here at 22 degrees in the sign of Pisces in his first house, okay? So off bat, your sun is going to show you a lot of your talents. It's going to show you a lot of your gifts. Okay, it's going to show you also a lot of your birthright. So things that are rightfully yours, and basically the sun, everything revolves around it, you know. So with his sun in Pisces, you already see someone who is very gifted in like their psychic abilities, or with the spiritual side of life. They're probably really in tune with their emotions, and really, you know, really tap into their dreams, to the fantasies, to mysticism, even with Pisces there. But also we have two asteroids that I want to bring up, which we have Dionysus, which is more so of a masculine energy, a divine masculine energy. And when I say divine, is when you look up Dionysus and his story, he was really like one of the main characters in the mythologies. And he was someone who was very influential, had a lot of watery type dreamy energy in the mythology. So with this being conjunct his sun in the sign of Pisces as well, I think it just adds adds to this more dreamy, emotional nature that Kevin Samuels had, and just probably someone who was really aware of a lot of their subconscious faculties, you know, and how to utilize them, even because Dionysus is just more so like masculine energy that's conscious, right, of a lot of subconscious and feminine type of energy. A person who had a lot of Dionysian energy that I like to reference was Prince. You know, he was someone who was very androgynous in his style and his appearance, and it was because he was really in tune with his feminine side, you know, and it really attracted a lot of women to him, and even, you know, same sex was attracted to Prince because he was in tune with so much of his feminine energy. And you see that also with Dionysus conjunct the sun. You know, you see someone who has a lot of androgynous features, someone who is very tapped in again to their subconscious mind. The other asteroid we have here that is also conjunct his sun is the asteroid Amor. And Amor deals with love, okay? It's like love is just simply just a whole lot of love energy going on. So with that on his sun, with Dionysus, this is someone who can be very romantic, or someone who has a lot of charm, a lot of charisma, someone who just really knows how to deal with a lot of more emotional, watery type of feelings and emotions, you know? That is on a positive, okay? On the negative, you can see that with Dionysus, someone who can be very like lost and detached into like a fantasy type of land, especially in the sign of Pisces. Someone who has to make sure that they're clear on what's going on and not living in a fantasy land of some sort. Also, with the more there on the negative end, it can bring about a lot of naivety when it comes to love. Even being seduced by your egoist desires. And I thought that was very interesting, because with the sun in Dionysus in the sign of Pisces, this is a lot of seduction type of energy, you know, and with it being so close to all of his 12th house energies, because his Pisces rules his 12th house and in a partial of his first house. So a lot of his Piscean energy is in his 12th house. So this is a lot of seductive type of energy, but I'm also saying it with a more like, you can easily probably be seduced by a lot of egoist desires, or feel really like into yourself, you know, really into yourself to the point to where you are all about yourself, you know. It's just really consumed with your ego. Your ego is really kind of puffed up even, but it's more not in a fiery way. It's more so in a more mystical, mysterious type of way. It's like a femme fatale type of energy. Someone who is just really using a lot of that charm to you know, seduce and gain what they want on a more negative end, you know. So that is his sun, you know. So already we see this theme of someone being very in tune with their emotions, very, very charismatic, very seductive even, and just really in tune with their spiritual side even, you know, with Dionysus. Because with Dionysus, you're very aware, but it's just you want to make sure that you aren't being intoxicated by your own awareness, by your own desires, your own ego. So let's get into another part of his identity. You know, let's get into the ascendant, because the ascendant is like your higher self. It's what everybody notices about you. It's kind of like what is guiding you ultimately, you know. So with the ascendant, we see that it is in 20 degrees Pisces. All right. So his ascendant is also conjunct his sun, Dionysus, and the asteroid Amor. So you just see a lot of Piscean energy. But not only that, a lot of people around him notice a lot of this charismatic, charming, seductive energy, like off rip. They realize how in tune this guy is with his emotions, because he just shows it, you know, or the way he carries himself, or the way he articulates himself just really shows that he's really in tune with his more feminine side and his more emotions. Even his appearance could probably come off as really like someone who takes care of themselves and nurtures their body and just really does all of these more feminine qualities, you know, and it's noticeable with the ascendant there, you know. So a heavy emphasis on his Dionysian qualities, you know. I would say this is someone who has a lot of masculine in a lot of feminine energy. So it's a good balance, even you can see all rip there. So someone who could be really in tune with both their masculine and their feminine side, you know, because he was, you know, he is a male, you know, so he has off rip automatically a lot of masculine energy. But with that Dionysian and the sun and the Moor and Pisces and his ascendant, it's just giving him a lot of feminine intuitive understanding as well. So that's another flavor. So it is shining more even a light on his seductive qualities and his more feminine and spiritual subconscious awareness, you know. The next part of his identity I wanted to dive into as well, which I thought was very interesting, was his South Node, because your South Node is your past identity, or it's the past skills and talents and characteristics and personality traits that you carry as you get older. Okay, so with this South Node, I wasn't able to put all the asteroids that I wanted to put on here because it would only let me fit 11 on Astro, but put some of the main ones that I wanted to focus on that I felt were important for our topic today. And with this South Node, he has it 18 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. All right, so let's just pause there real quick. South Node, again, is your skills, your talents, your abilities, what you're good at. A lot of the past characteristics are themes that happen in your life, you know, growing up as a child, whatever you may have when it comes to your past. With it being in the sign of Sagittarius, you see someone that is very involved in learning about higher culture, learning about the higher education of certain cultures, learning about higher education. I mean, looking into foreign cultures, traveling, someone who's well versed on kind of like the nature around life, you know, someone who's very involved in the belief systems and the faculties and the foreign cultures that all revolve around what life is. So someone who is just very in tune with a lot of higher concepts about life, you know, a lot of spiritual high concepts. Okay. And you have the asteroid Hera, which is conjunct to South Node. And Hera shows someone who has a lot of awareness. And this is in his 10th. Hera's in his 10th house, right? So this is a lot of societal awareness, a lot of awareness about what goes into to building legacies and what goes into to helping people to live a more structured life within society. You know, this can be even understanding the traumas that go into society and the lessons that society has to learn and the wounds that society has to heal through, and understanding how all of this is contributing to the overall quality of life, you know, is what I'm seeing here with Hera. So his South Node, he comes from this place of being well attuned and well versed in understanding a lot of the algorithms that go into creating society, a lot of the matrix, you know, understanding the fine linings and the fine print. Well, I wouldn't even say the fine print, but he understands a lot of the big picture. He understands a lot of the big picture. You know, he's really aware of even the details in the big picture, because Hera in Sagittarius, I'll say, is more so focused on the big picture, but Hera is an energy that is very meticulous and focused on, you know, the details, and very strategic, and knows a lot of wisdom and has a lot of communal insight. So it's almost as if he has awareness of both here, you know, showing that he is someone who is very intelligent, very smart, he's a visionary, someone who's able to really see a lot of the hidden side of life and understand a lot of what goes into the hidden side of life and what goes into to experiencing more of life, you know. So all together, when it comes to what we just discussed with the sun, his identity with his sun, his ascendant, his South Node, you see someone who has a lot of awareness into subconscious faculties, someone who is very well versed and has probably a spiritual system that they follow, because Sagittarius and Pisces are very like dreamy, adventurous, futuristic even type of signs, you know. And so you see someone who is very in tune with their emotional side. All right. So that's kind of that's kind of his overall identity and his energetic profile. I want to also get into the squares though that we see here. So we just finished talking about this Pisces energy over here and how he has, pretty much a stellium over here that we will discuss later. But he also has his south node over here in Sagittarius. He also has a lot of planets that oppose this Pisces energy in Virgo. He also has his south node over here in Gemini. Okay, so the thing about all this mutable energy, which is very changeable, mutable energy is very changeable. It's very easy to flow in and out and just turn into whatever it needs to turn into. With all of that mutable energy squaring each other, this brings about a lot of challenges. So you see in his chart, he has a lot of challenges to overcome. But the thing with challenges, it's not always a bad thing. With squares, it's like you almost become, you almost are here to challenge a lot of things in life, challenge a lot of viewpoints, challenge a lot of belief systems, and really understand how to harmonize opposites and basically, understand different polarities and understand how to put them together. But it will bring about a lot of trials, a lot of struggling, probably even a lot of pain, because a lot of that pain that with squares, you get a lot of resistance and a lot of just almost, it really gives birth to a lot of pain with squares, is what I've learned, because you just have to really endure and really overcome a lot of conflict and things of that nature. With his sun and his ascendant squaring his south node, which is his past identity. So it's almost as if his current identity squared his past identity, And what I'm seeing here is someone who could be, with all this Sagittarius energy, on their high horse, even because Sagittarius does rule the centaur, and someone who has their own view, they're shooting for the stars, they see a star, they're on their way to it type of energy, not really worried about anything else but that star, so they're going straight to it. But with this squaring, a lot of this Pisces energy, it's almost as if there's a need for you to pause, and make sure the star that you're shooting towards, so to speak, is actually a star and not a fantasy land that you created somewhere in your mind. Because with Pisces, it can bring about a lot of illusions, a lot of deceptions with the square here, it can make for a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors, or it can even show someone who has probably developed so much insight and so much awareness that currently they feel as if they have figured it all out, and at that point they are just basically living in their own fantasy land at some point, So you want to make sure with this square here that I see that you are balancing out your belief systems with your spiritual identity, and making sure that it makes sense, and that it enhances your public image as well as your self-identity, versus having a certain public identity and then a whole different separate self-identity, and then that creates disharmony and causes, like I said, the fantasy land, and just being lost in your own desires and emotions even. So it's a huge square there that I really wanted to touch on. I also want to get into this opposition here, because this opposition that we have is huge. It brings a lot of awareness to what's really going on here. So with this stellium, right, he has a stellium in the sign of Pisces, meaning that he has more than 3 planets or 3 or more planets in one house. Okay, so he has the sun that we'd already discussed in Pisces. He has Venus there, and he has Chiron, which Chiron is considered an asteroid, but it's one of the most important asteroids. So this is a stellium, with all of these asteroids as well. I consider it a stellium, in my opinion. And it shows with this stellium in Pisces that there's a lot of focus again on his spirituality, on his subconscious responses, his emotional reactions. A lot of focus is brought on that. And then the other stellium that we have is opposite, the sister sign or the opposite sign, which is Virgo. We have Mars over there, Pluto, Uranus, and the asteroid Zeus. Okay, so with all this energy in the 6th house of the sign of Virgo opposing all his Pisces energy, it shows you someone who is learning to balance out their spiritual identity with also a more practical, more ritualized lifestyle that supports, you know, their spiritual identity, and also supports them expressing a lot of this spiritual energy that they have in a more tangible, practical way that can benefit not only themselves but also the collective, because we have that Pisces in the 12th and the first house. So it's like a lot of the lessons and a lot of the belief systems that you have gathered are to benefit you in the first house and the collective, with the 12th house being here. So again, you see a lot with that stellium in Virgo of having to basically bring things into a more tangible, everyday type of understanding, in a way that you can connect with your spirituality through your everyday routine and your lifestyle, and just pretty much anything that you do on a day-to-day basis should help with the overall. It should serve a spiritual purpose, whatever you're doing on a day-to-day basis, because it just shows that. Let's get in deeper so that we can dive deeper into that, because we see here Pluto is in the 6th house, opposing all of your Pisces energies here. So with Pluto is all about soul lessons, okay? And Pluto is all about soul assignments, what we need to do on a soul level. So this involves helping not only your soul, but your soul family, and pretty much the entire cosmos when it comes to Pluto energy, all right? And with Pluto, he has it in the sign of Virgo, which deals a lot with sanitization and purification. So he has a lot of soul missions and the soul assignments around purifying and sanitizing a lot of the soul, you know, type of energy, or a lot of the collective, you know, because this is opposing the 12th house. With it conjunct Mars, this speaks of a lot of repressed, with Mars opposing all this Pisces energy, and it's by Pluto. This is like a lot of repressed anger, a lot of repressed rage, a lot of repressed passion, a lot of repressed desires that are needed to be expressed, you know. And I would say he has soul lessons to understand how to express these emotions in a healthy way, how to direct this rage or that fiery, passionate Martian energy, especially when it's conjunct Pluto. That's some very intense, powerful, transformative energy there. But there's a need to learn how to direct this energy towards the right sources, right? And so with this also conjunct Uranus as well, this is a lot of transformation energy. So it's like a lot of your soul mission and assignments is to help transform a lot of collective pain and passion and trauma into in a very unconventional way, right? That can help sanitize more of the soul, or sanitize the land, or purify the land, or purify the soul, or purify the collective, however you want to look at it, you know. But it's very, with Pluto, you know, we always go to the deepest parts of ourselves. It's soul lessons there. It's not more so focused on the ego. It's more so dealing with like the heart, you know. So this is like on a deeper level here. With this energy here opposing the Pisces asteroids, this is very, very intense, because not only does he have his sun and his ascendant right over there, but he also has in the 12th house, right? Because he also has Aquarius that rules over his 11th house and partially over his 12th house. So let's just speak on this 12th house here, which has a little bit of Aquarius, a little bit of Pisces. In his 12th house, he has the asteroid Chiron, which is all about your inner child wounds, or your inner wounds, which mostly stem from childhood. He also has Venus, which speaks of inner child wounds around love, or, you know, even around relationships, or just the things that you desire, or you're just, Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces. So it's like with that exaltation, and with Chiron, you can be really misled or misguided by your desires and your passions, right? Because Chiron, we don't really see things clearly because of it's the wound that has us, that we're operating through, you know. Until we've healed a lot of that Chiron, we'll be operating from the more lower energy of Chiron, you know, the more lesser energy of it, and that would be a more wounded place. With the conjunct Venus, you know, that is speaking of, you know, your love being wounded in some way, type of form, and having to understand how to heal from those fantasies, those issues, you know, those fantasies, like I'm saying, because it's just really, that's the word, it's just fantasy, a lot of fantasies. But then when it comes to child, you see another child asteroid. So wherever you have the asteroid child, this is all about your inner child. Okay, this is what you need to heal, what you need to protect, you know. So he also has his inner child in the 12th house, opposing his Pluto, Mars, Uranus energy. And then lastly, the next child asteroid, not lastly, is Hebe. Hebe is another inner child asteroid, and it speaks about your internal youth energy, you know. It's almost like the energy of your inner child, you know, and it's in the 12th house in the sign of Aquarius. And he also has Saturn that's in the 12th house. So it's heavy, because Saturn in the 12th house is really heavy energy, because a lot of it is unseen. You kind of can't you can't really pinpoint what's going on. You know, you have to really do a lot of meditating in the 12th house, a lot of past life regression, a lot of healing, to really understand the lessons that Saturn is trying to get you to learn. And with Saturn in the 12th house, by all these inner child asteroids, this just shows someone who has a lot of inner child wounds to learn, and a lot of their inner child needs to be strengthened, and really needs a lot of guidance, a lot more discipline, a lot more discipline that will restrict and limit a lot of these illusions or deceptive energies or corruption that can be present with Chiron in the 12th house, with Saturn in the 12th house, with Pisces and Aquarius cusping it. So very heavy 12th house. You know, he has a very heavy 12th house, Kevin Samuels did, and a lot of inner child wounds that with Saturn are destined for you to heal. You know, with Saturn, you're going to heal those lessons, you know, the easy way or the hard way with Saturn, you know. And with Saturn, what I also felt was very interesting with Kevin Samuels, Saturn returns at age 27 to 29. And your Saturn return is all about, basically Saturn comes and he has like think of it like having a pad in their hand, and he's like, what have you learned? You know, so at 27 to 29, you're kind of coming up for review, and it's like, hey, have you learned said lessons? Have you learned this lesson? If not, then you're gonna learn it now. If you have, you know, you get rewarded for it. You get a blessing. You get more power. Even with Saturn, you get more structure. You become more of an authority figure in whatever department that is you're learning those lessons. Kevin Samuels had one Saturn return, but he was 56, and he was on his way to his second Saturn return, which happens at the age, I believe, 58. So he was really close to it. He was pretty much on the shadow end of his Saturn return, because he does have Saturn in Aquarius, you know. So you see someone who learned, you know, has learned a lot of lessons, you know, because at that first Saturn return, approaching your second Saturn return, you've learned a lot, you know, you learned a lot, whether that be the hard way or the easy way, you know, but you've learned a lot about life. And with that information, you can now become a more of authoritative figure that can help other people now, you know. So with all of this energy here, he had to really learn a lot of hard lessons around his inner child, and how to protect it, and how to help it heal, and how to really energetically protect the individuality of his inner child is the overall message here with this 12th house energy here. But mind you, all of this energy is opposing, again, the 6th house with Mars, Pluto, Uranus, and Zeus. Okay, so with Zeus, I put this asteroid here because I thought it was very interesting, because it shows all of his inner child planets are opposing Zeus, which speaks of leadership on the positive end and tyrannical forces on the negative end. So you see someone here who, again, has soul lessons to come and purify and sanitize a lot of the soul, the collective, you know, the subconscious, and doing so by directing their rage and repressed desires towards the right areas, or to the right energies, or to the right parts within the collective, right? And with Uranus there, this can cause a tremendous amount of transformations, you know. And with Uranus, I always see that as enlightenment. It's almost like it's going to transform, and it may transform in an ugly way, so to speak, but at the same time, it's transforming for the better, you know, whether or not you see that or not, you know. So with all of this energy here opposing his inner child and Zeus, I see this as him having to protect his inner child from a lot of tyrannical forces, or even from his own tyrannical energies, you know, his own egoic energy that can be very tyrannical at times. Learning how to purify and release a lot of those ways, or to basically transform from the inside out a lot of those ways. Or this could even be him having to release himself by finding ways to defend himself against these tyrannical forces, and to detach from these tyrannical forces in some type of way. Because with Mars there, you have the ability. Mars in the 6th house is actually really good, because you have the stamina to really fight off a lot of, or even just the stamina and the willpower to get stuff done, you know. And this could be anything within your day-to-day life. Is how I see the 6th house. I see the 6th house as a collection of all the houses along with the 12th house, because the 6th house is your day-to-day routine. So it's almost as if the 6th house is everything, because I mean, you do everything on a day-to-day basis. So I see him really having to learn how to purify either himself or a lot of the energies around him from like tyrannical ways, tyrannical views, and basically overall helping his inner child to heal to a place of authority and leadership, you know, because he also has Saturn opposing Zeus. So he has a lot of lessons to learn about this Zeus energy, you know, a lot of understanding to learn about tyrannical forces and how they operate, in understanding how these tyrannical forces basically stunt youthful energy, inner child, you know, for the collective, because this is the 12th house. Another thing I wanted to mention with Chiron opposite Pluto, this is huge because it shows someone, in Chiron is conjunct also the ascendant, okay, in the sun. So this shows someone who can, as they get older, they will come into more power, because Chiron opposite Pluto, you go through a lot of deep transformative, even probably scary, traumatic instances that force you to heal, right? But it wounds you, you know, in the process, you know. But again, like I'm saying, with his Saturn also being there, it's almost as if each, like at 27, when he had his first Saturn return, I'm sure he integrated a lot of those wounds and understood a lot more of his inner child and how to basically become the power himself. Because with Chiron opposite Pluto, as you get older, going through those Saturn returns, you will eventually become the power, you know, in these tyrannical forces that would have abused you or stunted your inner child in some way, shape, or form, or just, you know, binded you in some even way, shape, or form. You would have learned how to overcome these forces with that Chiron. You would have learned how to heal from these forces, and in turn, you will become that Pluto energy that's now able to transform and help other people in the collective transform from these inner child wounds, and to understand how to protect their inner child from any tyrannical forces, and how to take back their power from any of these tyrannical forces, and how to express their energy in a healthy way, and express that rage even towards these tyrannical forces, so that these tyrannical forces can almost get a taste of their own medicine, and you can be the balance. Because with all these inner child wounds here with Chiron, you see someone who probably went through a lot of unfair, abusive, traumatic experiences early on in their childhood. And in the 12th house, it's almost like I think of the 12th house as like a dream, you know. It's like when you're in a dream, you don't know you're in a dream, and it's not until you wake up that you realize that you were dreaming, and then you're trying to like remember what was going on, and it's like you can only remember bits and pieces, and you got to put it together, and maybe the next day to make more sense, but it's just really dreamy and not clear, you know. So someone who definitely probably faced a lot of early on childhood wounds that they probably had no understanding or awareness on how how to relate to it or what it really meant, but that is what we're seeing here overall with his squares and his oppositions for the most part. I next wanted to talk about two more things when it comes to his natal chart, and then we'll move on to the synastry and the transcendence. I want to talk about this trine that he has. He has a water trine as well. So he was really in tune with his emotions, had a lot of emotional depth, okay? And with a water trine, he has the sun on Pisces, his moon in Cancer at 29 degrees, which is a critical degree, all right? We're going to discuss that. And then he has Neptune conjunct the asteroid Ophidius in Scorpio. So he has his water trine going with his sun, his moon, his Neptune. So he received a lot of intuitive guidance. Whether he understood where this guidance was coming from or how he was getting it was probably unclear. But at the same time, it was almost as if he probably received a lot of miraculous insights and guidance about how to overcome certain emotional problems or how to transmute or alchemize certain energies that he was dealing with, because a water trine is very good for helping you to tap more into your emotions and understanding how to heal yourself and how to be guided more by your intuition, So that was also one of his strengths, I see. So very aware. He probably went through a lot of unexplainable events and unexpected events, but I would say he always probably gained the insight that he needed to gain in order to understand why that happened, whether it was sooner than later, but he probably always understood or gained clarity as to why that was. So that's his water trine. And then I want to speak on this moon, because his moon is very pivotal here when it comes to talking about his transcendence chart. His moon is at 29 degrees Cancer, and this is a critical degree showing that someone who has a lot of emotional depth, but a lot to heal and a lot to understand about that healing. Because 29 degrees Cancer with Achilles conjunct that could be someone who has went through a lot of trials, but must understand how to integrate the lessons that come from those trials in a practical way, because this is speaking on his 6th house energy, because 29 degrees Cancer can be very tumultuous and can bring about a lot of chaotic energy because it's so intuitive and it's dealing with the roots, your foundation. And in the 5th house, it's dealing more so with like his creativity and more of his heart and like the emotions that are deep within his heart, and with Achilles there, though, it shows that this is someone who can overestimate their abilities to heal, or someone who could have overestimated their ability to even listen to their intuition. You can see maybe there's some, because Chiron is here trying the moon. It's like the more you heal this Chiron, the more clarity you'll gain into your emotions, and the more you'll understand a lot of these lessons, these traumatic events with this 8th house energy. But with Chiron, if you haven't healed on the more negative, and if you haven't healed a lot of those Chiron wounds, then the moon is going to be disillusioned here in 29 degrees Cancer. And with Achilles, you can overestimate or think that your intuition is telling you something and it's really not, or just really being misguided, illusionary energy there, because with water energy, it can also bring a lot of confusion, deception, corruption also, so you want to keep that in mind, And so that's overall what I'm seeing with Kevin Samuels' natal chart. Just to touch on a few things, he was someone who was really in tune with himself, had a lot of awareness, but also went through a lot of heavy lessons and a lot of inner child wounds that he was destined to heal from in order to help other people in the collective heal from. Lastly, his North Node is in Gemini, so we will speak on that, because that's showing that all in all, with the Sagittarius and South Node, there's a need for him to tap more into the details of life and to understand and basically put all of his information out on the table, everything he's learned about these lessons from the past as he's gotten older through his Saturn returns, put all that on the table and review the details, mix and match, see what needs to go, what didn't work, tried and tested measures, because the Tropis is there conjunct his North Node. So a Tropis is all about cutting things off, cutting things out of your life. And so there's certain beliefs, certain ideologies, certain patterns within society that need to be cut off. And with with you, you have the ability to basically cut those things off. Yeah, so basically that's the gist here. There was another asteroid, and I wrote it down, that I wanted to tap into for him. Yeah, so let's get into he also had another Virgo asteroid called a checklist that I thought was very important, conjunct his Pluto. I put it here because I wasn't able to add it on to my chart. But here you see a checklist at 16 degrees. You see his Pluto at 14 degrees with Deucalion at 12 degrees. A checklist is a messenger, okay? And Deucalion is all about craftsmanship, okay? So with Pluto and that being conjunct, you see he also had with the soul missions of transforming a lot of that sixth house energy and purifying and sanitizing a lot of the land and the collective. Is through his voice, through his message, through the things that he's relaying to the collective with this 12th house involved. So there's a lot of soul lessons to be learned about how to relay messages to the collective, and understanding how to do this in a way that can help foster more healing, you know, because with Chiron on your ascendant, you will trigger a lot of people, because that's how you've healed. You've been triggered your whole life, you know. So naturally on your ascendant, people are going to feel really triggered by a lot of the things that you say and you relate. But the thing about being triggered isn't always a bad thing, because the wound with Chiron is how you let the light in, so to speak. You know, it's where you're wounded, where the heart is cracked, but at the same time it's where the light can get in order to heal. So you see him as able to really relay messages that may trigger a lot of the collective, but at the same time trigger them into higher states of consciousness. It's almost like, oh, they're triggered, they're mad about it now, but tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, they'll have understood and healed actually from that trigger, because it would have brought more awareness and more light into their wound. On the positive, on the negative, and we do know he has a lot of squares, so I'm sure it probably was a challenge for him to understand how to relay messages that not only trigger people for the words, but also help them he probably relayed a lot of messages that triggered people for the worst, you know, with a lot of squares, or maybe started out doing this. But looking at a lot of Kevin Samuel's videos, he triggered a lot of people, and the next day they will feel worse, or the next week they will feel worse. He would really make people be triggered for the worst, for the negative. So that's lessons to learn there. And I would even say that was probably more so a self-projecting than him probably not really ever getting, probably always getting triggered in life and not ever really getting what he needed. All right, so let's go ahead and get to the next slide, which is Kevin Samuels and the USA Synestry chart. So I really wanted to dive into the USA Synestry chart in conjunction with Kevin Samuels, because I wanted to just get an overall understanding of the collective energy that was currently present, that was also, you know, resonating or lining up with his natal planets. So let's just go ahead and look and see what we see here. Something that really just shouted out at me when I first set this up was this child asteroid. So as you see, child is in Pisces for the collective, the United States of America. So a lot of wounds within the United States of America deal with Pisces themes, you know, mysticism, the subconscious mind, the dream world, this, how you know, tap into your emotional body, your intuition. And you see here, his child asteroid is actually conjunct with the child asteroid for the USA. So this is telling me that Kevin Samuels had a lot of insight as to the wounds of the collective, because again, his child is in the 12th house. So he had a lot of awareness into the wounds of the collective within the United States of America. And this may have come about through his studies, you know, with that South Node in Sagittarius, or it just could come about through phenomena, you know, unnatural phenomena coming through, because he has Chiron there. So maybe a lot of things just come out of nowhere, out of the unknown, but through these, you know, whatever came out, these traumas, these conflicts, these challenges, he understood through overcoming them and learning the lesson, he understands more of how to help the collective heal these same inner child wounds. That's on the positive end with that child asteroid. On the negative end, though, since his child is conjunct Chiron and Saturn is involved, these are very, very, very hard lessons to learn, first of all, with Saturn and Chiron there, but also being able to, like, due to it's really like important that you heal with, and when I'm talking to you, I'm speaking of Kevin Samuels, that he heals a lot of his inner child wounds, because he can influence a lot of the collective to do the same or to do the opposite, and basically become even more wrapped up in these wounds and operating more from this wounded, fragmented state of mind. So a big responsibility is what I would say with his Saturn also conjunct the child asteroid. It's like he's the authority that can help a lot of the wounded children within the United States of America, or a lot of people with inner child wounds, to overcome those inner child wounds due to him having faced the same exact wounds and overcoming them, as he gets older, of course, with that Saturn. Again, we talked about that. So he was originally someone who was set up to become an authority figure, especially within the United States of America, to help a lot of other people heal a lot of their inner child wounds. On the positive, on the negative, we do see someone who can basically reinforce those self-sabotaging behaviors within a lot of people and within the collective. So that is something we did notice. So a huge emphasis on him really helping to heal his inner child wounds, to help other people within society and the collective. Also, we see Zeus is conjunct his Mercury. So I think this was very interesting because it's in the sign of Aries. So you see someone with Mercury in Aries who is very like a sharpshooter when it comes to their word. They're going to say what's on their mind. They're going to speak the truth. Well, they're going to speak passionately. I don't know if it's the truth or not, but they're going to speak passionate about anything that they're communicating. And they don't mind being the outcast. They don't mind doing it by themselves. They don't mind setting the trend, when it comes to a lot of things they're communicating about. But with this conjunct the asteroid Zeus, this is giving me a lot of tyrant energy, a lot of tyrannical energy and vibes. It's like tapping into a lot of the energy of, leaders within the United States of America who are very tyrannical or have this tyrannical energy. And with Mercury there, you can learn from these energies how to communicate more like loving messages, because the more is close by. Or you can also cultivate this same style, right? And basically utilize it, because within the United States of America, it is a very like patriarchal type of society. So you will find that utilizing this same shadow Zeus energy to communicate to the collective can work, but at the same time, it can bring a lot more traumas. It's just like you look at the United States of America today and how a lot of the collective is communicated to, and how the people that are in charge and the leaders or whatever, how they communicate to the masses through media, through politics, everything. You can see how that energy is, and it's not really like, it's not really too helpful for most of society, in my opinion. So you can see someone with that Mercury here who can adopt those same traits and not really be helping society that much, or they can, and they can become a leader that is actually learning a lot about these tyrannical forces and speaking out against it and helping other people to see, how to break free and how to gain more power and passion versus giving it away to these leaders. So you already see he has a very strong voice within the United States of America as well. That's why he was probably, so influential when it came to the things that he spoke about and that he said. Also, we see here this Achilles conjunct transit Mercury. So we talked about his Achilles and how it can give you an overestimation of like your intuitive abilities, and just really kind of overestimating it depending on how much healing he's done with this trine energy. With this conjunct Mercury, it's giving me that like he's had a lot of awareness. He has a lot of awareness as to how to go about healing his wounds, and he even gets a lot like with Chiron here opposite the 7th house. A lot of his wounds and the progress of him healing his wounds are mirrored back to him through the collective, and people actually give him a lot of feedback as to the progress, if it's helping the collective or if it's not, or if it's helping himself or if it's not. Because I see this as just somebody who could, again, with that Chiron and all this watery energy, they could get themselves in some type of self-sabotaging behaviors and get lost in la la land like we explained. But I see a lot of guidance that can also come from the collective and from around you that can kind of help you to get back on track, or to just kind of help you see if you're doing a good job or not, or if you're aligning with the things that you're saying, if it's really helping people or not, is what I see with that Mercury conjunct Achilles. And it can help you really cut off any detrimental sabotaging behaviors. You know, people, society can really help Kevin Samuels with doing such a thing, because they can shine a light on these things for him and help him to gain more clarity of how he's being received. And not only how he's being received, but how he's also like viewing himself, how he's receiving himself, because he's just, you know, he's just mirroring back to the public or the collective what he is, you know, what his healing is, how much he's healed, you know, whether he has a wounded ego or not, he's still giving it out. He's still projecting this image out to the collective, and they're actually being the voice of reason to let them know whether or not it's, you know, in alignment or not with what he is trying to identify with. I hope that makes sense. That was a lot, but that is what I'm saying there. I will say also with this other Achilles, so his Achilles is like really coming up here a lot. This Achilles is the Achilles for the United States of America is in Virgo, showing that there's a lot of, you know, understanding that the America is trying to achieve when it comes to the knowledge and the awareness that we have gained, and just how to organize a lot of that information in a way that is going to help a lot of people. We can probably overestimate how you know, how valuable the information is that we're American people within the United States of America, are the, you know, the people in power can overestimate with this Achilles energy the effect that it can have on the collective, whether that's for good or bad. And with this conjunct his Zeus, this shows someone who is really probably not aware of a lot of the tyrannical or tyrant energies that they project out to the collective. Because again, if Chiron can make it make you unaware, you know, you can be oblivious almost. So it's like, and it's in the 12th house, so something almost makes me want to say that a lot of the shadow parts of Kevin Samuels were probably really hard for him to see, and he would have to have a lot of compassion and understanding and be open to receiving a lot of constructive criticism from the collective in order to really see these wounds more clearly. Because just looking at them by itself or going in alone, he could probably get lost in a lot of like deception or corruption even, and be oblivious to it in some way, shape, or form. So a lot of inner child healing to be done, a lot of receiving feedback from the collective and integrating it accordingly, and then kind of coming back out and sharing. You know, that's also that North Node and South Node Gemini Sagittarius axis. So yeah, that's basically what I'm seeing here with the collective. Also with this Mars conjunct his North Node, you just see again him being a messenger of truth, and just really on the positive side, reaching his North Node and expressing all these truths, and basically directing that rage towards any tyrannical energies within the United States of America. He has that type of authority and that power to really help expose and overthrow a lot of those leaders on the positive end. On the negative end, he could be someone who is basically fueling and breeding more of this deception and corruption energies and misinformation within the United States of America. So that is what I've seen there with the Synestry chart. Let's go ahead and move to our last chart here, which is the Transcendence chart. And with the Transcendence chart, we're going to just go over the energy that was present on the day of his death, aka Transcendence. And that was on May 5th, 2022. Okay. And the sun was in Taurus. All right. We were coming off that we are still coming off the solar eclipse in Taurus. So you do see that there was a lot of activity going on within his 8th house with that Neptune conjunct the South Node in Scorpio. And there was also a lot of activity going on in his 2nd house with his Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. before we jump into that opposition there, I want to jump over to this Neptune, because this Neptune really screamed at me, and I was like, yo, that was a pivotal planet that was going down when he transcended, and that was something that he really needed to pay attention to. Whether or not he was paying attention to it, I don't know, but I'll just tell you what I see. So with his Neptune originally in the 8th house, conjunct the asteroid Ophidius, we talked about this, just having really good spiritual reflexes, knowing how to navigate through a lot of spiritual waters and psychic waters. Neptune has transited over to Pisces and is conjunct now at 24 degrees his ascendant sun Chiron, right? So Neptune is now all up in his energy, now all up on his sun, you know, all up on him with the ascendant. And with this going on, with this Neptune now over here, this really shines a big light on what Neptune's going on. Let's kind of go back to Neptune a little bit, because Neptune rules over the sign of Pisces in modern day astrology. In traditional, it is Jupiter that rules over Pisces, but for specific for this video for Kevin Samuels, I'm going to be using the modern day rulers of the signs. Okay, so for Pisces, we're going to be using Neptune. All right, so his Pisces energy governs this 12th house, as we discussed, right, and partially the 1st house, but we'll get into that. So with the 1st house ruler Pisces in the 8th house, right, this speaks of a lot of the hidden side of life, and him being very aware of a lot of the hidden side of life, and actually even wanting to explore a lot of the hidden side of life. And the 8th house holds good and bad karma as well. So it can also show someone who receives a lot of unexpected events in their life, whether good or bad. Also, it can show someone who is able to just receive a lot of divine guidance and miracles, you know, when it comes to those things. And it even shows someone who is able to basically know a lot about paranormal activity. You know, a lot of paranormal activity may have happened to this person, or this person just has been very versed in understanding a lot about paranormal activity. All right. And it also governs partially the 1st house as well. So this does show someone who is just basically dealing a lot with trauma and bad and good karma. So it's a lot of cause and effect going on. All right. And so with Neptune being over here now on his ascendant and sun, this to me is just like good or bad karma just kind of catching up with you, and it's being like right on your ascendant. And with Neptune, it's almost, and with Neptune being in the 8th house, this is like your subconscious mind. So with it traveling around and being on your sun, subconscious ingrained thoughts and behaviors are just rising up or being shined a light on, you know, and it's almost as if it's automatic. So it isn't really something that you're thinking about consciously. It's just kind of like happening. So I see a lot of unconscious motives coming back, or rewards coming back on the positive side, or just bad karma or bad, you know, energy being returned. Because with Neptune on the positive end, you can see a lot more compassion coming in your life, a lot more understanding. That's the higher notion of this, because he does have Venus in Pisces as well. So he would be more compassionate around this time and more understanding of a lot of those lessons that he went through, and just understand, you know, what it all was. And it will help him to see more of his power, you know, because Pluto is on the opposite side, like we discussed, help him to see more of his power, you know. But on the negative side, it can show someone who is now becoming more aware of their darker side, their more shadow side, especially with that 8th house. And Ophidius is there, you know, about reflexes. So with Neptune being there, it's almost as if he's quickly turned on to like certain darker aspects of his life, and literally looking at himself, you know, and straight in the face, and like realizing any messes or any darker aspects of his life that he's created, really seeing it and sitting in it. That's the more negative of Neptune, but also can become lost in it, and really just, you can choose to continue on this deceptive path or not. But with his Ophidius right there, it would be really hard for him to turn away from any previous like ingrained subconscious, unconscious actions at this point, because Neptune travel so slowly, you know, and it was in your 8th house, and it's in your dealing with your 12th house. So these are things that you would have to have done a lot of subconscious unprogramming, and just with that Pluto alchemizing a lot of those darker energies, so that you heal to a point to where you're not acting from this fragmented place. You're acting from a more healed, powerful, even spiritual, authoritative place. You know, that's a lot. He has a lot of the outer planets close within his ascendant and sun in 1st house, so like all on him, you know. So a lot of these things were kind of like destined, and you would have had to done a lot of the work beforehand, integrated a lot of those Saturnian lessons beforehand, so that when Neptune does come across here, you're in the more higher octave of understanding and compassion versus self-sabotage or deception and corruption, you know. So that is something I noticed, and I was like, wow, that was probably something that he really needed to be aware of, or something that, you know, people should really keep in mind when they're viewing his charts as well. Also, Ophidius that is conjunct Neptune is transit over here opposing Neptune, you know. It's transit over here by Zeus. So again, a lot of these reflexes are past things that you may have. If you hadn't healed any of those wounds, then you're going to be acting out whenever those wounds get triggered in the same way from the past. All right. And with Ophidius there, this could be going deeper into those wounds and becoming more wounded. All right. On the negative. On the positive, like I said, you can come and grab a lot of compassion from those wounds and understanding, and you can gain power and liberation from it and just become more authoritative. But with Ophidius over here, I'm just seeing someone who maybe has had to repeat a lot of the lessons, and having learned the lessons to the point to where now they are attracting all of those missed lessons, and all of that bad energy may be sent out straight back to them, and it's showing up very unexpectedly with the 8th house, and probably even very paranormal. So something that just comes out of nowhere, you know, because the 8th and the 12th house are involved in Neptune and Scorpio. So big energy, right? We also had the solar eclipse in Taurus, and the South Node is in Scorpio on his Neptune as well. So his Neptune was really playing a big part in this transcendence. I mean, on this day during his transcendence. So Neptune and Scorpio in the 8th house, this to me is like clearing out emotional debris and clutter that it's time to go, you know, transforming and alchemizing all of those tough, painful lessons so that you can turn into the butterfly, so that you can turn into the phoenix, you know, and rise, you know, and actually bring in more with Taurus, prosperity and abundance into your life is what on the positive end this is. But also on the negative, this is still clearing out negative energy and debris, but you could be the negative energy and debris, you know. On the positive, I would see this as negative forces or negative environments or places around you being transformed so that you can now live in a more, so your inner child can live in a more comfortable environment, you know. But you could be the debris, you know. You could be the toxic person that is polluting your inner child in your environment, you know. So that's also something to keep in mind here with the lower and higher aspects of that. And then with the North Node being in Taurus, and with Jupiter there, and I did pull up the asteroids for Jupiter, and we'll look at those in a few, but with the sun there in Taurus, and it was conjunct as Hebe, the sun was conjunct Hebe, sorry. So the sun was 15 degrees, and Hebe was 12 degrees Taurus. So his Hebe naturally is conjunct Saturn. So big lessons, you know, big karmic lessons to learn about that youth energy, right? And Hebe was actually on the sun the day of his transcendence. So in with Achilles, okay, which is actually on his moon. So he had Achilles on his sun transit and Achilles on his moon natally, all right? So this is kind of like blurred intuition right here. And this right here is giving like overestimating your capabilities, you know, overestimating your talents and your gifts, you know. Uranus was also there in Taurus. So this is bringing back about major changes and transformation. And with Hebe there on the sun, I feel like this is highlighting any of the lessons that you've integrated to date, or also highlighting any of the lessons that you haven't integrated to date, shining a light on that and transforming the situation to ensure that this emotional debris in clutter is removed or is transformed, right? So that more prosperity and abundance can come not only to you, but also to the collective, because this Hebe is over there touching the 12th house, and it is Saturn. So we see a lot going on with the Hebe asteroid, Achilles, and his Neptune. So okay, and Ophidius, the asteroid Ophidius, also was playing a big part in that. Let's look lastly at more of these Jupiter asteroids. I put them here. I mean, at these Taurus asteroids where his Jupiter is. So in Scorpio, he had with his Neptune on Ophidius, he had also Persephone, Erocoth, Hecate, and Hidalgo. So I wasn't able to really put all of those, but you do see he was going with Persephone. You go through a rites of passage, you know, and like we spoke about with the Scorpio energy in the South Node, it was about him really clearing out a lot of that clutter, right? So that he can step more into power, you know, with Persephone, and especially her being in the 8th house. It's like you're here to alchemize a lot of that dark energy and come out as the Phoenix, you know, and have transformed a lot of those toxic darker energies around you into more harmony now, into more abundance and prosperity, right? That's what Persephone is saying here next to Neptune. And then it opposes Jupiter in the 2nd house of Taurus, along with the Damascus, Varuna, Osiris, Ophelia, Cassandra, Hephaestus, Crantor, Hades, Sisyphus. So all of this energy here is showing you that Osiris is also another divine masculine aspect. So this takes us back to his ascendant with Dionysus. So Dionysus is also like another part of Osiris to me. So all in all, there was a lot more of this emotional debris and clutter that was supposed to be removed. So more of his divine masculine, more of his inner child, which is his true identity, could shine forth, bringing about more abundance and prosperity to not only himself, but also the collective with that North Node there as well, and all his 12th house energy. So that's what I'm really seeing here. I also see a more in child word transiting over his North Node. So again, there was a lot of review on the inner child work that he had done or not done in transformations and changes coming about with Uranus opposing this South Node in Scorpio. A lot of changes and transformations coming about from the lessons you've integrated thus far or not, you know. So all in all, I think this is what played a part in Kevin Samuel's Transcendence chart. I hope it made sense. And I hope it you know, really helps someone to gain some form of awareness, even to understand more about certain asteroids that can talk about transcendence. So without further ado, I am going to end the video here. If you would like for me to tap more into this chart or look deeper into it, please let me know. If you would like to get a transcendence chart with me, you can check out all the information in the description box below. Also, please be on the lookout for my next video, which will be discussing the role of Leo within the United States of America, which will be coming out really soon. So without further ado, thank you for joining me and have a good life. Peace.